It's 11:11. Perfect time to address the constant nonsense that is your existence. It seems you haven't yet realized that neither humans nor animals really want you around at all. We could probably even add plants to that list. Let's explore. You walk into a room and somehow the air changes. Not because anyone is excited to see you, but because people brace themselves. It's not dramatic, it's subtle. Conversations thin out, smiles stiffen, eyes flicker towards exits, phones, watches, anywhere but you. That's the effect you have. Not impact, not presence, just a low-grade, persistent discomfort that settles in like a draft from a window that won't quite close. Nobody says anything outright because it's easier to tolerate you than to confront you. But don't confuse tolerance with affection. You are endured, not embraced. It's almost impressive how consistently you miss the mark. Tasks that most people complete with minimal thought somehow become drawn-out sagas in your hands. You start things with confidence you haven't earned and finish them, if you finish them at all, with excuses already lined up. There's a reason it didn't work. Always someone else who misunderstood. Always circumstances that were unfair. The common denominator never seems to register with you. It's not the tools, it's not the timing, it's you. You have a remarkable talent for draining energy from a space. Not in a loud, explosive way. No, that would at least be memorable. You do it gradually, with complaints disguised as insights and criticism framed as just being honest. You think you're adding value, offering perspective, sharpening the conversation. In reality, you're sanding down everyone else's enthusiasm until all that's left is dust. People don't leave conversations with you feeling inspired. They leave feeling smaller, dimmer, vaguely irritated without always knowing why. And then there's your competence, or rather the absence of it. You approach new skills like a tourist who refuses to read a map, convinced that you'll figure it out. You rarely do. Instead, you blunder forward, ignoring advice, dismissing expertise, and then acting shocked when your results look like a rough draft that should never have left your desk. It's not that you can't improve, it's that you won't. You hover at the edge of adequacy and call it mastery. You mistake mediocrity for talent because acknowledging the gap would require effort. Socially, you are a puzzle nobody is interested in solving. You offer opinions as if they're great revelations, unaware that they're recycled, shallow takes everyone else grew out of many years ago. There's a reason your messages go unanswered for hours. There's a reason plans happen last minute and somehow you're never informed. It's not coincidence, it's curation. You think you're misunderstood. At least that's your favorite defense. But being misunderstood implies that there's something of value that people are failing to perceive. What if there isn't? What if what people see, your laziness, your defensiveness, your constant underperformance, is exactly what's there? It's much easier to imagine yourself as a hidden gem than to admit you're just a dull stone refusing to be polished. When you fail, and you do often, you fail loudly, When you succeed, it's usually by accident or because someone else quietly fixed your mistakes behind the scenes. You don't notice the edits, the corrections, the extra hours others put in to make your contributions usable. You walk away with misplaced pride, unaware that your work survived only because someone more competent carried it across the finish line. If there were a trophy for almost being useful, you'd still manage to drop it. Your self-awareness is practically non-existent. You repeat the same habits, the same errors, the same tired patterns, expecting different outcomes. You promise change with the enthusiasm of someone who believes words alone are transformative. Then you revert within days, sometimes hours. People have stopped believing you, if they ever did. Your apologies sound rehearsed. Your commitments feel temporary. Trust erodes quietly, and you've been eroding it for years. It's not just that you're bad at things. That's a forgivable trait. It's that you don't seem to care enough to get better. You skim the surface of everything: hobbies, jobs, relationships. None of them receive the depth of attention required to thrive. You dabble and then complain when you're not exceptional. You want the rewards without the grind, the recognition without the refinement. When reality refuses to bend to that fantasy, you sulk as if the world personally wronged you. People have tried to help you. They've offered advice, guidance, even patience. So much patience. You've responded with defensiveness, masquerading as independence. You don't take feedback, you swat it away. Every suggestion is interpreted as an insult. Every critique becomes an attack. It's exhausting. Eventually, people stop trying. Not because you're perfect, but because you're not worth the effort it takes to penetrate that wall of fragile ego. You often position yourself as the victim of circumstance, but the pattern is too consistent to ignore. Jobs that didn't appreciate you, friends who changed, projects that just fell apart. The script remains the same while the cast rotates. It's almost theatrical. If this were a story, the audience would have figured it out by now. The protagonist isn't cursed. The protagonist is careless. The protagonist sucks. Even your attempts at charm feel mechanical. You deploy humor like a blunt instrument, hoping volume will compensate for lack of wit. You repeat anecdotes as if repetition will make them funnier somehow. It doesn't. It makes them stale. You overestimate your appeal, mistaking politeness for admiration. If you paused, really paused and observed the micro-expressions, the forced smiles, the abrupt topic changes, you might realize the truth. But introspection would require courage that you do not have. Your ambition is shallow. You like the idea of being impressive more than you like the process of becoming impressive. You fantasize about success but recoil from discipline. When faced with actual work, you look for shortcuts, loopholes, ways to appear competent without investing the necessary time. The result is predictable: half-formed achievements and a reputation for unreliability. There's also the way you handle conflict, by escalating it unnecessarily or avoiding it entirely. You lack any sort of nuance. Small disagreements become dramatic standoffs, or else you retreat into passive-aggressive silence. Neither approach earns respect. It simply reinforces the impression that you're emotionally stunted, unable to navigate complexity without making it awkward for everyone involved. If you were as self-assured as you pretend to be, you wouldn't need constant validation. Yet you fish for compliments with embarrassing transparency. You frame your insecurities as jokes, hoping someone will contradict you. When they don't, you grow resentful. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Reassurance isn't owed to you, especially when you've done so little to justify it. Your inconsistency is legendary. You're motivated on Monday, indifferent by Wednesday, and completely checked out by Friday. You start conversations about goals and growth, then abandon them at the first sign of inconvenience. Reliability isn't glamorous, but it's valuable, and you've never seemed interested in cultivating it. People don't build plans around you because experience has taught them that you are the weakest link. You have potential, sure, as much as anyone else does, I suppose. But potential is meaningless without follow-through. It's a promise you never intend to keep. You cling to it as proof that you're secretly exceptional, as if unrealized ability is somehow more impressive than actual results. It isn't. At some point, could be becomes indistinguishable from never was. Perhaps the most frustrating part is your refusal to connect the dots. The lukewarm reactions, the dwindling invitations, the polite distance. These are not mysteries. They are feedback. The world has been telling you quietly but consistently that you are difficult to like and even harder to rely on. But instead of listening, you double down, convinced everyone else is flawed. Nobody wakes up thinking about you the way that you imagine they do. You are not the misunderstood genius in a crowd of fools. You are the underperformer in a room full of people trying their best. And while they improve, adapt, and grow, you hover in place, clinging to excuses like life rafts in a sea you created. You could change, theoretically, but that would require humility, effort, and a willingness to admit that you're not nearly as competent or charming as you think. It would mean accepting that the common thread in your disappointments is your own behavior. Until you confront that, nothing shifts. The room will keep cooling when you enter. The opportunities will keep slipping through your fingers. The polite smiles will remain just that. Polite, not genuine. You are not feared. You are not admired. You are not envied. You are tolerated. But that tolerance has an expiration date. If you continue on this path, half-hearted effort, defensive pride, chronic mediocrity, you won't just be disliked, you'll be irrelevant. And perhaps that's the most accurate summary of all. Not uniquely terrible, not spectacularly awful, just persistently, reliably underwhelming. In a world that has little patience for people who refuse to rise above themselves. You suck. Good night.